All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Coffee Q&A, our weekly or daily coffee question and answer kind of session here. We talk about coffee and anything that you're interested in, as well as brew some stuff up. I'm Jay, your host. Thank you for tuning in, for you being here. We got a whole nother week of shows coming up. So how's it going, everyone? Everything's going well, I hope. All right. Let's get into the question of today, which is, I thought we'd start looking at questions that people are having about coffee and talking about them a little bit more here on the show. So our first question for the week comes from a guy named John Dyer from the Pour Over Coffee Lovers Facebook group. This is a group that I participate in, and he had a great question that I thought, I'm going to read it to you. Let me just pull it here so you can see it. We'll zoom in a little bit more. And it says, I've been V60ing for about a year now with a VSSL hand grinder. I've had bags of fruity coffee beans. I'm coming from a traditional dark roast lover. I don't see a huge difference when I make a dark roast from Starbucks French roast K-Cup. The fruity coffees are indeed different. First, they are much harder to grind. Second, I'm just not getting a cup that has my taste buds saying, wow. Are there recommendations for fruity coffee beans that dark roast coffee lovers like? I need to find some set of beans that is different from standard dark roast and makes this whole process worthwhile. And that's really kind of the gist of everything. Is like, why do you want to make coffee at home when you can use a K-Cup? It has to be worthwhile. Absolutely. That's totally the deal there. And I think that if you're using K-Cup and you go to pour over brewing, you're going to find a lot. I think you'll find better results. Better results because you can now control the quantity of coffee to water as well as the type of coffee you're using. Like most of the K-Cup stuff is not so great. First of all, the coffees themselves may not be great. The Starbucks ones, probably not that great. And then the ratio of coffee to water is also, very on the watery side. So, but your interest is in fruity coffee. So one of the things you want to think about when you're thinking about sourcing coffees is, for that fruit, is that you want to look for natural processed coffees. Natural processed coffees tend to give more fruitiness to the coffee. And the reason is that natural processed coffees are basically the coffee cherries that are totally ripe are picked from the trees, and then they're laid out in the sun to dry. Now, after they've dried for 21 days and they've reduced in moisture content down to about, somewhere around 10 or 11%, then they are dry milled, and all of that husk that surrounds the bean is machined off. And then what happens is during that process is that the beans have been surrounded by a fruity layer called mucilage. And it's that fruity layer and pulpy matter that is kind of imparting some of the fruit sweetness to the coffees. And so if you're looking for something that's going to be more naturally fruity, look for coffees that are natural processed. And what we're going to do today is we're going to brew up a little bit of coffee here to demonstrate. I've got this bag of dark roast from Rusty's Hawaiian Ka'u. This is their classic dark roast. Now, one thing about Rusty's, they do a lot of different styles of processing at Rusty's. I know the owner, Lori, and her daughter, Lori. The owner, Lori, and her daughter, Joan, and her Joan's husband, Ralph, very, very well. And they're really good friends of mine. And of course, also Lori's son, Rusty, is also a part of our show, and sometimes in the morning, but definitely, we're also part of the same group. And they do a lot of different processes. They mostly grow, I think now they're growing mostly Typica, and they process in a variety of ways. Some of them wash, some of them natural. I don't know whether this one is natural or not. It says here, full-bodied and smooth with dark chocolate and cherry notes. I'm going to presume that because of these tasting notes, this is more of a wash coffee. But they do naturals. And what you could do is you could reach out to them and be like, hey, I'm interested in your coffee. I got a link down in the description so you can link directly to this particular coffee. Its 7-ounce bag is $20.50. So it's while it's not the cheapest coffee on the market, it's not terribly priced, right? Like $20, not bad. It is 7 ounces, but it is coffee produced. It's some of the best coffee that's produced in one of the most expensive regions of the world. So you're actually getting a pretty decent deal. So we're going to try this today. Let us get some things going on here. I'm going to get the scale out. Now, and since you mentioned that you're looking to do pour over, we're going to brew it as a pour over. So first of all, let's get our... Did I take the batteries out of this thing? Oh, I did. Sometimes, you just don't know. All right, let's get our scale. So for this brew, we're going to brew up 24 grams of coffee with to make a 12-ounce cup, right? 12-ounce cup. I wasn't out late last night. Maybe I was up till a little bit late, but I don't know. I feel a little bit sluggish this morning, a little bit not as smooth. Maybe it's the start of the week. What's going on here? Is this 81? Yeah. Come on. This feels like a lot of coffee. Oh, yeah, see, it's not even moving. That can't be right. 81. Yeah, 81. No way. That's way more than we need. One thing that after using this for so long, this never fills up that much. So I don't know. Oh, there we go. That's the problem. All right, let's try this again. There we go. That's more like it. It must be catching on something. All right, good. So let's have a look here at our dark roasts. Michael, good to see you, man. Nice to see you, man. How good to have you. Coffee herbalist. Coffee. All right, so this is the dark roasted of the Rusties. And as you can see, it's not terribly dark. Like it's not dark roasted to the point where the oils are coming out of it. So it's while it is a darker roast, or I would say more of a deeper roast, it's not quite, the black charred stuff that Starbucks produces. Actually, some of the blends that we'll produce that are really on the darker side will make it darker than this. Nice aroma. All right, so we're going to take that. We're going to put that into our Baratza Virtuoso, one of my favorites. So we're sure that we're going to adjust the grind to a medium grind because we're using pour-over brewing. Good, good. So how was your guys' weekend? Anything interesting happening? It was kind of birthday weekend, so we did a lot of birthday stuff for my mom and one of my good friends, Tony. All right. So there it is. Our coffee is now fully ground. Let's have a look here at the grind. Kind of this nice medium. It's a little bit hard to see the smoke translucent. Mom, good morning, man. How are you doing today? How was your weekend? Hope it was good. All right, so today we're going to use the B House as a pour over. I couldn't find the V60, so I just grabbed the B House. This is the B House pour over. It's made in Japan, like the V60. And the big difference, as you can see, is it's a conical, but it's a wedge conical, right? And instead of having a big orifice like the V60 has, these have two holes. Why is this? What this does is that it's actually It's actually a little more forgiving as a brewer than the V60. The V60 with its very large hole means that if you're not pouring it, if you don't have the grind perfectly set and you don't have your pour perfectly dialed in and timed in, then it's very easy to under extract by going too fast, right? This one, because it's more restricted with the two holes, it just means that it's going to be it's going to hold back the flow from flowing through the coffee so you can get better extraction from it. We use this type of brewer for many years at the shop, this and the V60 together, and just kind of like go back and forth, depending on the what we want, right? What we're trying to achieve. Like I think the V60 is really good for more experienced baristas that actually have better control over their pouring technique and things like that. This one is good for newer baristas, or people, or if you don't want to think too much about it, you want to set the grind to a point where you can put so much water in and get the flow rate to come out at so much time, which is like 3.5 to 4 minutes. And I think you just set the two together over time. You're playing around with the adjustments a little bit, but once you get it set in, it's kind of like a no-brainer. Whereas the V60 or the ones that have large holes in them, you really kind of have to watch them. But it's really more of a question of what you like. All right, so let's get our paper filter. Got just another generic Melita style paper filter. This is actually the ones I've been using are from Wegmans. I bought a bunch of them I bought a pack during one of the, as you can see, this is the smaller of the bee house. So the number 4 filter fits in pretty large. So we're going to add this in here. But I bought a bunch of these filters and I'm just going through them. They're perfectly fine. I don't really find terrible differences between different filter manufacturers. Like there are ones like the Sybaris that are supposed to go faster, but I don't know why you really want to go faster. It still doesn't make much sense to me. But so we've got our coffee here. It looks like a nice medium grind. That's the nice thing with the Baratza. Delivers nice quality ground coffee at a very reasonable price point. So I really like those grinders. You can get this Baratza Virtuoso, the newer model that has digital timers or digital dosing, something like that. I haven't used the actual new ones. $250, right around that point. And so it's really, really accessible, really affordable. And the quality of the grind has always been very solid. The Taiwanese made and American owned. All right, so that's pretty much that. All right, we're going to take this thing, put this on top. The one thing with the bee house that I kind of always thought was strange is that it has this. I'll put this over here. It has these wings, right? These wings, they're kind of oblong, so they give you space. If you're going to brew it over a cup, they'll give you space. They'll sit on the cup for the most part. This mug's a little bit wide for the two tabs that are here, but for the most part, it'll fit in most mugs, and it gives you a little more space so you can see. There are these like little portholes. You can see through these portholes, and then since it's narrower here, you can also see down into the cup itself, right? So it's a little bit nicer, but also I feel that since it is a narrower piece, it's more easy to slide and perhaps fall off. I've never really had that happen, to be honest with you, but it's always a concern. All right, so we're going to put that here. Let me just jack up the temperature once again. Oh, here we are. I knew I had a kettle somewhere. This is the Hario Buono. This is like the old classic of pour over kettles. I've had this one I probably had, oh man, this is probably one of the originals from the Hamden shop. So that's got to be pushing to 13, 14 years old now. And that's the nice thing. These kettles, they're fine. They're really well made. Stainless steel. You can go on induction. It can go, I think this one, I don't know. It can go in flame. And I just transfer the water over. start our timer, and then we're going to start brewing. We're going to do hopefully 3.5 to 4 minutes. We're going to go to 350 mils. So we're going to wet the coffee. I usually do about 85 grams of water or milliliters of water to start out with, because it's, it's a nice ratio, and just kind of let it sit there and brew for about 30 seconds or so. Most of it has fallen through already. So I wonder, maybe I was probably pouring it too heavy. I probably should have poured a little bit more reserved. All right, we're 30 seconds, so let's go back more. I just like to keep the coffee wet and to a certain level, and then just let it roll. It feels like we're flowing pretty fast, though. Now, since the scale doesn't have a battery, we're going to use these hash marks as our reference for the brew volume. Essentially, that means we're just going to brew and continue pouring until we've reached 350 milliliters. Now, if you have any questions, of course, drop them in the comments. Love to hear from you. So if you're interested, like for John Dyer, if you're interested in brewing pour over, this is pretty much what you have to do, like every day, every morning, instead of the K-Cup, which is much more simple. You just put the pot in, close the cap, hit the button, it heats up and does its thing. So much easier. But the coffees I've had in K-Cup, a little bit difficult. Also, the one thing about the pour over, you can control the flow. Like if you want to pour heavier and get it to brew a little bit faster, it is possible to do that. But I like to try to stay with the total brew time being 3.5 to 4 minutes. And we're doing pretty well. 2 minutes 45 seconds. As you can see, 2:45 or 2:54 now, almost 3 minutes. A little bit heavier there. I think we're going to need a little bit more water. Oh yeah, we're just about done. All right, excellent. So that we're looking at the what do you call it? The hashtags, the hash marks on the All right, so that looks pretty good. We're pretty much done now with the brew. I'm just going to take this and get rid of it. And then all right, there's our coffee, nicely brewed. Dark roast, the Ka'u. This is the Ka'u Classic Dark Roast by Rusty's Hawaiian Coffee, Ka'u Coffee in Ka'u, Hawaii. And what else do we need? We need a glass. Let's get a glass here. We're going to do some pouring. And then let's do some tasting. Let's see how it looks. Looks good. Nice and deep amber. got a warm nose, a little bit light, a little bit of sweetness, and a hint of roastiness. Like I said, this wasn't really, I mean, I don't consider this to be a dark roast coffee. Perhaps if you're one of these really light, bright kind of guys, you'll think, oh, that's really dark. But it's not. In the world of coffee brewing, roasting, it's not very dark at all. It's on the darker side, but it's not dark. Like dark would be like blacker with like, you know, oils coming out of it. That's how it tastes. Definitely more roasty than I like. Rich and like, I can see that there could be some cherry tones, but I mean, it's not a fruit bomb. And here's the thing. So like a lot of people will, when it comes to dark roast coffee, one of the difficult things you're going to find is that dark roast, or the mentality in the business is that dark roast should not be taken seriously, meaning that they're going to buy lower quality coffees for the dark roast because they believe that people only want to have the dark roastiness flavor to their coffee. I mean, pretty much most everyone does this. So that's one of the difficulties, John, you're going to have in finding this coffee is you're going to have that people just don't pay attention to that, right? And I'm not one that believes that because I think that when we started out with Spro in Hamden, the idea was that we were not going to do dark roasted coffee. Like we were like, okay, we're not doing a dark roast. So we just didn't have dark roast. And this is after we started roasting our own coffees. So people would come and they're like, do you have dark roast coffee? I'm sorry, we don't do dark roast. And then, and back then, you have a lot of friends, a lot of people in the business, they're very cavalier. They're very much like, oh, we would never do dark roast. What if you burn your coffee? Well, we would throw it away. Like you're going to throw away coffee that you spent really good money on? Like we talk in this business about how much we care about the coffee, how much we care about the farmer, how much respect we want to give to the efforts of these farmers. And if we over roast the coffee, we're just going to throw it away. That's just the height of arrogance, right? The height, incredible amounts of arrogance. So one day I'm roasting the coffee and, this is some nice, I mean, all the coffees we buy are very high quality and really nice quality because I don't buy lower quality coffees to meet a certain demand. Like perhaps in the wholesale side, if we really have someone specific that's like, I want this particular, parameters for the coffee, we would tailor it to that, but that's a whole different question. But stuff that we're serving to our guests in a shop environment, they're all very high quality stuff. So I'm roasting the coffee and one day, sometimes the roast just gets away from you, right? For whatever reason. And that day it did. So it was over roasted, darker. Not terribly dark, but just dark enough that I wouldn't sell it as the coffee that it was intended to be. So it's the dilemma, right? You paid what? I don't know, $4 or $5 per pound for this coffee. And what, you're just going to throw it away? That seems craziness. And it's disrespectful. And again, like I said, it's the height of arrogance. So, the commerce side of me is like, well, we got to make money off of this, right? So let's go. And I know there's a whole market that come in and they're like, we have dark roast. Do you have dark roast? So I brought it in, created a name for it. We call it the Night Watch, kind of like this darker. But this is actually before Game of Thrones came out. And we just put it on the menu. Just here. Here's a dark roast. And people loved it. And I think people responded well to it because while it is a darker roast coffee, it is a darker roast of a very high quality coffee. So that even though there's darkness to it, there's a roastiness to it, you can still taste the flavors and nuances of that coffee. Admittedly, the nuances are going to be a little more diminished because the flavor of the roastiness is starting to encroach on the nuances. And in some cases will replace some of those nuances, but it's still there. It's still a high quality base. And we sold a lot of it. We ended up having to make it as part of our menu. For the first year or two, we just kind of did it as whenever I made a mistake. So it would happen very sporadically. And then after a while, I was like, why are we doing that? Let's just provide these people who like dark roasted coffee with really great quality dark roasted. So what I'm leading up to this is that as you're looking for coffees, the hard part is that coffees will change, right? So coffee in a green state that I buy today may very well have changed significantly, depending on a variety of factors, by let's say 6 months from now, a year from now, definitely a year from now. But that change is ongoing, so it's changing. So that it's hard to find what you're asking, this fruity dark roasted coffee, because not too many people are going to produce that. Most people that are going to be producing dark roasted coffee are going to be using washed coffees because they're cheaper, they're more readily available, and you can buy lower quality washed coffee for cheaper, right? So you can buy a lot more of that and roast that, and the idea is that people won't notice or people don't care, right? So your challenge is going to be trying to find a place that'll have a natural processed coffee that will meet your flavor requirements. And so what I would say is that why I use this Rusty's is that because Rusty's is a producer in Hawaii, and they are small batch grow. Well, they're not small. Oh yeah, they're small. And compared to a lot of my other farmers I work with, I mean, they're very tiny. But one of the things you can do is you can call them or reach out to them and say, hey, I'm interested in dark roasted fruity coffees. Is it possible for you to make me some dark roasted natural? Try that and ask, see if Ralph will do it for you. I'm presuming that he will, because they're a small company, and so smaller companies are better in their respect that they can tailor what they're doing. They may be able to do it, and they may not. I can't. I'm not saying they will or they can. I'm just saying your probability is higher. Outside of that, it's just going to be a matter of trying different coffees from different companies, and you just get on the phone with them, call them up and be like, hey, I'm looking for a fruity dark roast. Do you have this? Is that something you can produce? So they'll tell you yes or no. They should be able to tell you yes or no. I'm going to suspect that many of the companies that are out there will not want to do that, because that's going to mean that they're going to have to do special runs. They're going to have to get a natural coffee, which they probably have already in inventory, but they're going to do a special roast for it, which, to be honest, it may or may not be cost effective for them, right? So if you can offer to buy, I don't know, 6 bags at a time, it's probably more compelling to them, or whatever will make it worth their while to roast a batch. Depending on their size of roaster, if they're roasting on an IR 12 kilo roaster, they're probably roasting 20-pound batches. So, I'm not saying to commit to 20 pounds or 18 pounds of coffee, but if you could, that would definitely help them on the way, help convince whoever it is to work your way. Otherwise, when it comes to darker roast, I think that most people, they're just buying whatever coffee they can at whatever price point makes sense to them, and they're roasting it dark. And they're not really caring how much or what the flavor profile is, because they want it to be dark. People want dark roasted coffee. And the impression that we have in the business is that dark roast people don't care. They're going to add cream and sugar to it, so what does it matter? But I think there's a way around that. I think there is a way to talk to smaller roasters. Or, we talk to roasters in your town that are small, and ask them, be like, hey, this is what I'm really interested in, and I'd like to buy. Hopefully, you'll have something that I can try. And if you're the kind of person that drinks a lot of coffee, like my friends, they're kind of crazy. They buy a lot of coffee. They buy they'll buy a half dozen 2 kilo, and they'll buy a half dozen kilo-pound bags from Lavazza, and they're perfectly happy. I don't understand it myself, but whatever. I don't judge. But anyway, hopefully that will help you there to figure out what you're going to do for dark roast coffee. And I think it is possible to make really nice quality dark roast at home using a pour-over type brewer. This is nice, a lot of caramel, a lot of chocolate, a dark chocolate bitterness. But in this particular case with the Rusty's, it has not the roastiness has not overshadowed the flavor, right? There is a strong roastiness to it. There's no doubt about that. I can taste that. But some dark roast coffee get to the charcoal, the real heavy bitterness. This is not to that level. All right, so I hope that helps. I've been babbling on about this, but hopefully that'll give you some direction and some help. If you have any more questions, drop them in the comments down below, especially if you're watching the replay. And Michael and Mom, good to see you guys. I'm glad you're here. One question for you guys, especially any of you that are watching, I'd like to hear, The thumbnail. The thumbnail has today's question, but I kind of don't like the thumbnail. Like I don't. I added I created the thumbnail first with just the blue background and the question, and then I added the tagline font above in the second variation that actually published to the video now. I don't know if I like it. I don't think I like it. What do you think? I'm interested to know what any thoughts on a better thumbnail? I'd like to know. All right, so leave that in the comments down below. Mom, good to see you, man. Thanks, a good one. Oh, you think it's cool? All right. Okay, very good. All right, well, then I'll work on more. We'll have more tomorrow. Hopefully I won't be, I feel so like, I don't know, I just don't feel as lively for some reason. I didn't get enough sleep last night. That's probably what it is. All right, so thank you very much for tuning in. Glad to see you all. Hope you have a great one, and see you next time.